So here we go. Okay, so here's the dealio. So 2 weeks ago, I went into my garage, and this is my garage, one half of it, and it's a very small 2-car garage. This side that you can see here is this is basically how the garage was the last time I messed with it. Now, if you remember, I did a project, which I have a YouTube channel, and I have a video on there about me doing, was it my called a garage cleaning project or something? I can't remember now. But basically, I did a bunch of moving some stuff around. I cleaned out this room underneath a porch, my front porch. Like, I had to dig it out. Did a big old project. Anyway, so I'd cleaned a bunch of the stuff out of the garage, had kind of reorganized it like a little bit, at least put stuff kind of generally where it was going to go, and still had like a wall to fix and some other things to do. And I did a big drainage ditch beside the garage to make sure that the water wasn't getting in next to the wall and then freezing and destroying my wall. So anyway, lots of stuff in the other video that you can go through. But this project was basically me just saying, okay, I've got this garage space. I need to like organize everything, and I need to fix the wall. And then I wanted to install a support beam, a better support beam, in case I needed to hoist anything. I eventually want to work on my car, so maybe hoisting parts to a car, maybe even engine, etc., something like that. So the idea was, okay, let's tackle the garage. Right. So this is how the garage looked after the last project. Everything's just sort of there, scattered boxes. I was just sort of generally just putting stuff there to say, hey, there it is. Okay, I had this big pallet of boxes, from computer boxes and stuff that I had cleaned out of inside my house. Like, all right, I gotta get this figured out, right? So this wall right here was the big issue, though. There was this big crack, and this is if you looked at it from the outside, you can see where the wall sort of like curved in. So yeah, it was a problem. It was a problem. And yes, there was a couple of my bikes. You have one of those box files? Yes, they're a problem. And they are. So you can see the crack in the wall, right? So the plan was, I'm like, okay, I talked to my brother about it. I wanted to use reinforced concrete, and the idea was I'm going to try to somehow push this wall back, pour some cement down a couple of these columns, because obviously cement block are hollow. And I was like, take a couple of the columns, pour some cement down them, and put some rebar down there too. So that's what I'm showing you, how I was, kind of, here's the wall, here's what the problem is. I don't know what that picture was. It got in there somehow. All right, so I got some rebar, right? And this is just me cutting some rebar. We can fast forward. It's yada yada. It's just me doing rebar cutting, which is not super interesting, but zippity doo dah. I love my new angle grinder. I don't know what they call that. I think it's called an angle grinder. Anyway, it cuts right through this like nothing. So that's pretty cool. So I cut the rebar into like basically maybe 14-inch pieces. I'm gonna guess something like that. I had only had like one piece of rebar. Anyway, I cut it. Blah blah blah. All right. So then after I got the little pieces of rebar, so get this. My neighbor's tree was being trimmed last year. And yes, new tools are the absolute best. That's right. So, the neighbor's tree, literally right next to my house, she was getting it trimmed. So, I had the tree trim service guys, like, I asked them if I could have the wood, and they're like, yeah, like, of course. That means they don't have to haul it away. So, I got some firewood. But I said, hey, can you leave a couple of the pieces, leave them in bigger beams? So this is probably about 7 foot long. Yes, angle grinders are really helpful. Yes. Yeah, cut the side bins. Wow. Yeah, anything like that. It's so helpful. So I had this long beam. So what I did was I took this big 6x6 chunk, right? I had this just chunk of 6x6 that this one old guy gave me with a bunch of other stuff. So I had the 6x6. I put a flat board in, sort of in behind it. You can kind of see it on the next one. See, I buried this flat board. The 6x6 is only about maybe 3 foot long, so I buried it in. I used a post hole digger to do that. I kind of supported the beam here, my car jack, and so then what I did here is I tap-conned 4 bolts in this big board, tap-conned this into one of the bricks, or into the blocks, and then I just cranked it back. I didn't do a lot because technically the building is sort of like, if you go back here and you look right, you can't, I don't know if I have a good way to show you. Basically there's a window like right off to the left side here. It's kind of hard to see. It's kind of like, it's this window right here. Okay, so basically what happens is this building doesn't have anything to tie from this block over to the other block next to the window. It has nothing to keep the building together. So technically the building at this window is sort of splitting like this a little bit too. So eventually I'm going to have to kind of shore that up. It doesn't seem to be excessive, but it's definitely cracked. And this one side, this lower, like the side that this picture is being taken on, this side of the building is sort of maybe slid just maybe an inch or two. It's not excessive. So I didn't want to push too much on this because I didn't like, this whole wall here in front of the camera here, this whole wall is like bowed in several inches from the outside, the upper hill. So after I took care of all that, it's like I gotta at least push it back a tiny bit. More and more haunted. Yeah, it's getting better though. It's getting better. So I bolted this on, jacked this up, and just kind of just put some pressure on it. And you could definitely tell that it took out some of that inward, you know, say curvature, right? So then what I did is, you can see here I put a bunch of screws in here. I just put this up against the board and cranked on it. And I, like I said, it wasn't crazy, but enough. This is just me mixing some cement. There's really nothing to see here other than me just mixing cement. Cut open this, use Quikrete reinforced cement. Just cut open with that, sprayed it down. It's kind of dusty. I'm very dusty and dirty. I mixed it all by hand there. Bada boom, bada bang. And here's the better holding it up. You know? It's not quite that bad. Oh, that's funny. All right, mixing cement is very satisfying, though. I will say it's very satisfying to mix up. It's kind of hard, but it's satisfying. Okay, so moving along, and then this is me. Just basically what I did is I took a short piece of stovepipe that I had left, a vent pipe, and I just curled it because there's only about like, I don't know, 2 inches worth of the cement block column showing from because there's a top board that they put on top of the wall to attach all the other wood to, right? So there's only like I said, 2 inches. I chipped a little bit with a stone chisel. I chipped it out a little bit so I could get in there, but I ended up having enough cement to pour 2 columns. So this is just me doing one of the columns. You can see I just I just took it in this little trowel and just dumped it in. It was like the trowel fit the little metal stovepipe piece pretty well, actually. It was a little janky, but it worked. And then every so often, yeah, like an ice. That's basically, I think that's what it is. Yeah, I think it's an old ice cube scoop. The old guy that gave me all these cement tools that I have, he's the one that gave it to me. So, like your table, yes. So I filled 2 columns, and then every so often, every so many inches or so, I would try to drop another piece of rebar down. And I ended up not using as many on the first one, so I used a bunch more. I was talking to one of my kids, blah, blah, blah. All right. So I'm cutting boards for, what were these boards for? Oh, this is for the next project. Okay, okay. So, any rate, let me go back here and then just show you. Okay, so I ended up pouring these two columns here. This column, I skipped a column, did this column, rebar, and then I had enough left over. I was pouring down this third column right in the middle, and it got stuck somewhere down in here, so I ended up pouring like the top third. So that worked out okay. So here's where the story gets a little crazy. So I get to the point where I was like, all right, done pouring this. I was like, all right, now at some point, I'm going to install a beam, another support beam here, and then a big heavy cross beam across here in case I want to do, like I said, any kind of, you know, hook up a hoist and do any kind of, you know, heavy lifting, right? Whether it's a car part, whether it's a, I don't know, whatever, you know. I'm not obviously trying to lift anything that would be unsafe or over its weight limit, but this garage is not built very well. These were like 2x6s for this cross beam, and it's not that great. And there's only like 2x4s running this whole length here, so I was like, I'm not going to rely on the structure of this garage at all. Obviously, the walls aren't great. So I was like, I'm not anything I want to do to the structure. I'm going to have to build something else. It's satisfying to mix. Yes, it is. Run your dance house to keep the prevent skunks and squirrels. Oh yeah, that'd be perfect. Yep, just pour in like a pad of cement around. Yeah, that's great. So I was like, you know what? You can kind of see these two pavers down here. You can't really see them well, but there were two pavers I had left over from the other project. So I was like, well, what if I just put these here? And then I'm kind of like looking at it. I kind of dug down. I'm like, well, I do have a little bit of this cement left over. I was like, why don't I just pour it in there and then I'll have the pavers ready. So I poured cement and I put the pavers on top. I'm like, well, I'm this far. Why don't I go ahead and get a beam put together? You know, it was like one of those things. You're not going to rely on the floating structure not attached to itself. Garage Ghost would be offended. No, I'm not going to rely on the floating structure not attached to itself. Yeah, Garage Ghost would probably be offended, but he's going to have to just be offended. Because it's a problem. All right, so I cut some boards. I don't even know why I was taking it. I don't know why I took a video if I did take a video. I meant to just take a picture. So here's what I did. I had a professional help me. So, yeah, good Ghost. Yeah, it hasn't hurt me yet. Yeah, I had a professional help me. So just FYI, looked up the specs of how to build a proper beam, and it is only spanning 10 feet. Keep all those things in mind. And of course, it's just to lift something within reason. So, I didn't take a lot of pictures of doing the whole project, but I did take a picture of the final project. The final countdown. All right, so what I did is I took three 2x10s, glued them with, and that's why I took pictures of this plywood. I put 2 layers of plywood in between all 3 of them. You can see here. See a 2x10 plywood, 2x10 plywood, 2x10. Roughly every 16 inches, I put 3/8 bolts and bolted it all together. Glued it as well. I put glue in between every layer, bolted it all together, and then, as you can tell, I reinforced the crap out of it. Professional. Hey, listen, the professional wasn't necessarily using the saw at the time, okay? All right? Yes, and so I went to town. I tied this into that top board. These angled boards are obviously screwed in. These are all 3-inch decking screws. I use these reinforced metal brackets that you'd normally use for, like floor joists and or, you know, rafters, and I just went crazy. I put reinforcements up on the, you know, the beams, you know, on the whatever you call these, at any rate, they're roof pieces. Anyway, I put supports there. I put the support that ties into this top board here, rafter. There we go. It's duh. Yeah, so I tied them into the rafters. If you look over here, I went really crazy with this one. So this is a 6x6. This is treated lumber. So it has cement, 2 pavers, and then this 6x6. And the cement's like, you know, a circular pad. So it's buried several inches in the ground. 2 pavers, 6x6. Then I have 2x6s on either side. So it's sandwiched on either side by 2 2x6s. Okay. That's connecting the beam to this 6x6. All right. So it's sandwiched this way. On the back side, I have another piece that basically ties in the bottom and the top. So it's kind of like it's all held together like 3 sides. This front side, or the inside, obviously I have these 2 2x6s as support beams this way. Then I took an angled chunk of this 6x6 and I put it up in here. I don't know if I have a picture of that close up. Yeah, you can see it. See this? I cut another Y because what I wanted to do is provide some support between these 2 pieces without putting another piece on the outside. So I stuck that up in there. I screwed it in, and then I screwed it in on these 2 ends. So those 2 like supports, they'll have a lot less opportunity to twist or shift. I put another 2 Y supports up into the rafters here. I took a 2x10. I ran it. I screwed it into this side of the garage. Ran it across so that the whole beam can't shift towards the inside of the garage, because that's what I was worried about. You know, it's whoops. If you look this side is really tied in nicely. Like this whole section of boards, that's all tied into the top board. That's, you know, so this is all very well tied into this side. But I was like, what if it gets pulled back the other way? So this 2x10 runs all the way to the other side, and it's screwed in and tied in there. And it has, I even took a board and dropped it down from the rafters for it too. So that 2x10 can't just, you know, warp up and down or bow up and down either. So there would have to be some serious, like, I don't know, like a freaking, you know, tornado to rip it apart. And then I did tie all this into one of these 2x4s that support the garage beam. And I just did one small piece in behind here. I don't know if I have a picture of it. It's kind of back in here, but I did tie this garage beam into this 6x6 beam. So I figured, well, this garage isn't great, so this 6x6 beam will now help to support the garage as well. Very well done. Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, this is all what it looks like. So, basically, I put another 2x10 there, and I put some cardboard that we had, because I'm going to use this upper area here for a little bit of storage. Just some cardboard and other things. You know, obviously, if I want to work on a car, I don't want to be laying on this, you know, semi-gravel, semi-sawdust floor. It's a good mix of both. But, anywho, so I felt like I tied it all together in such a way as like, if this thing comes down, the whole garage is gonna come down. Can lift an engine, transmission, no problem. That is my hope. Yes. Yeah, that is my hope. I did see somebody online they lifted their body, you know, one of those big heavy Oldsmobile bodies off of the frame, and they had the doors off and the glass out, and they did it on a beam that was, let me just say, a lot less supported. It looked like maybe a little bit stronger than my original garage beam, but it didn't look that great. And they were, it looked a little sketch, but they did it. Because I think the metal, you know, like when you take your seats out and everything, and you're doing a body, you're lifting your body off of your frame. If you're right, it can't be too much more than an engine tranny. Yeah. Yeah, Xavier, kerosene heaters. I will probably use some kerosene heaters this winter. I do have these for backup for the house too. My sister just gave me this one. This one does work. It's not perfect, but it does work. Also, I just got this drill press as well, which is nice. That was given to me as well. A lot of these tools actually were given to me. This cutoff saw came from my father-in-law. He gave it to me. This table saw, I did buy in a kind of a load of stuff, but it was pretty cheap. But anyway, yeah. Pipski, welcome in. Yes, another new tool. Exactly. I'm actually very excited to have a drill press because I feel like it would help me to be a lot more precise, which I need. And lots of different projects I get into, I don't feel like I have that precision, so it's very, very helpful. And you can try to steal mine. Wait, what am I trying to steal of yours, Xavier? So many tools, you need another garage. I know. I gotta stop. I'm done with tools. I don't even know what picture's next here. Okay, so this is the picture after the beam is all done. I even, if you know, you probably didn't notice, but I even moved all my electrical over. That was another big project. I had to move all these electrical boxes and switches. I had to take them all apart, of course, to turn the electric off. I had to take them all apart and rearrange them and turn them around. So I got them all taken care of. So that was like, I put a little shelf up here to put my speaker and my phone too. So I had tunes while I was out there working. All right, so this is what it was right after done with the beam project. It's messy. I got sawdust everywhere, blah blah blah. Okay, so you can see I had some extra space up here for some cardboard and some other things. So that was nice, but yeah, it's just boom. It's a mess. Oh, and oh wait, are we in the pictures? Yeah, this has to be the later pictures. Okay, so now things did change. Okay, all right, they did. Somewhere here. Wait, where were they? Okay, so you might not notice this, but this is just all sort of stacked and piled here. I didn't do a whole lot, and then boom! All of a sudden, it's way more organized, and you can't tell. Maybe, but I'm telling you, it is. Tarman raided me and I was AFK and you said you were taking... Oh, okay, I got it, Zero. I remember that. I actually do remember that. Yep, taking all the things. Yeah, all that room for activities, that's right. Pallet Box 2.0, but... Well, kind of, Pipski. It's more like Pallet Box... It's more like the Garage Box. I don't know. Yeah, Pallet Garage, I don't know, whatever you call it. Yeah, being organized is extremely important. So, I mean, I got like all my car, like oils and liquids there, and my my grilling stuff here, and you know, car washing stuff here, and got the kids. Like, this is gonna move because this is just like kid skates, and we're gonna take this inside. But this shelf, I'll probably build some more shelving for stuff. All right, so when I started to organize, I wanted to take a couple pictures. I did get my lights moved over. My sister is going to be giving me a bunch of long LED, they look like, not neon lights, but they look like, oh my goodness, we don't even hardly use them anymore. The big tubes. You guys know what I'm talking about. The cinder blocks. Ooh, that's pretty good. Yes, fluorescent. There we go. I can never remember the name anymore. I don't know why. So, you know how they have those LEDs that look like fluorescent lights? I mean, this is kind of one of them here, hanging here. You can't really tell because it's obviously on and it's bright. But she's got like, she said, I think like 6 of them. So, better paying. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Pip, I love that. The cinder block sounds awesome. So yeah, she's got a bunch of these long LED strip lights that look like fluorescent lights. And I should be able to wire them all up and have like tons of lighting in here. So I am so excited about that. I'm very, very pumped about that. So, but yeah, this just gives me a ton of space. I can kind of go in this corner. All right, so yeah, just now I have space. Once again, it's all organized. It might not look great, but it is what it's going to be for now. it's at least a workable space. These bikes will move eventually. The bikes that I have on the other side too, these actually are my sister's, and they'll be going back to her soon. So, but there's a little project here that I was able to work on today. Okay, I did jam this ladder in here for some extra security against this window because people could mess with this window. I also barred this window so people can't just open it. So hopefully it's relatively safe. Yes, I don't have a message of the day. That's why my whole thing is what is the word of the week, but we'll have to get there. The window that isn't attached to the wall. They can already just kick it in. At any rate, okay, so here's the deal. Let me that's all for the garage. That garage is done. All right. That's going to be a nightmare to edit, but anyway, there we go. Now, I want to show you guys something else. So, in the process of cleaning out the garage and organizing the garage, okay, I was like, I grabbed the toolbox that was my dad's toolbox. So, this is very important, okay? Gary the Garage Ghost will guard it with his life. Boy, I hope so. That's hilarious, Gary. I'm gonna start calling my garage Gary. That is awesome. Thank you, Rosie. That was like the best ever. Salt people, I call them food. Make them hungry. Give them a Snickers. Boom. Yeah. Ay, ay, ay. That's mean. That's very mean. Okay, so here we go. So, I went to... Alright, so don't mind the pictures. They're going to be upside down and backwards, and it's going to be very disorienting, so I'm so sorry. But anyway, so this is a Craftsman toolbox that my father had. So this is why this is special. My dad... I went to visit my dad. He had Alzheimer's. He was starting to get Alzheimer's a little bit bad, and I went to visit him the one day, and he was doing well that day, and he knew it. He knew he was slipping. So he said to me, he said, "Listen," he said, I want you to come out the garage and just, make sure you pick out any tools you need." He said, your brother's already picked out anything he wants. So just, I want you to take what you want. So, that was super, super special. Because it's kind of like my last thing my dad really gave me, or, like it was that, sort of that kind of goodbye moment. You know what I mean? Very hard to describe, but it was that sort of finality. So he points to the garage. Of course, I'm like, yeah, I would. He's like, would you like the tools? I'm like, yeah, I really would. And here's what's interesting. I remember picking this out for him. I think it was for a Christmas. Me and my mom went to the mall, went to a Sears store, and we searched around. I think she had found a set of tools on sale for that Christmas, and we're like, he really needs a set of tools. And so we picked out I think we picked out the tools and the toolbox. And I remember helping my mom pick this out. So that was like even more special, right? Because it was like, I remember, going through that and getting it for him for Christmas, and he loved it and used it. So I had this toolbox sitting on my floor, which was stupid, right? Because it's metal. It was in the garage. I didn't think too much about it, but I didn't realize that gravel retains a lot of moisture. It's dirt mixed with gravel, so it retains a lot of moisture on the floor. So that is a problem with this garage, is that if I'm going to park a car there for a long period of time, it's a problem. So eventually it does need to be cemented. So that's the backstory on the toolbox. So I got this, I picked this toolbox up when I was reorganizing. I'm like, let me make sure this is cleaned up and ready to go. So I open it up. Once again, it's very disorienting because I'm kind of upside down, but it was just filthy, full of crud. I had not really touched it much since my dad gave it to me, and it had some old stuff already, and then I had added a bunch of sawdust and other crap on top of it. When I worked around, of course, in a messy garage, everything just gets, it's just terrible. So I'm like, I'm looking at it, I flipped it over, this is what I find. It's completely rusted out, like awful, right? The whole bottom end of it's like, this is all eaten off. Everything else is good, but the bottom is terrible. So I'm like, okay. So I was all right, Mr. Pallet, you want to work on a car that may have some rust, you better learn how to work on rust. And I've been watching all these car videos for like the last 2 weeks, right? Yeah, Xavier, 10 out of 10 would do it again, no doubt. No, that's great. So I was like, all right, I think I can do this. I'd watch all these car videos, people cutting out rust and all this stuff, because I've been trying to learn, you know? So they, all right, let's go to town. So I was like, okay, so the first problem is I got to figure out what's metal, what's not. And I was like, pretty much this whole bottom is just shot. Like, it's dead. It's thin, it's rusty. I can't get inside of it to try to treat it anyways. There's no way I can get in here because this is all a sealed compartment. So I'm just going to have to cut off. So here comes the handy dandy angle grinder. And I literally just cut the whole bottom of the toolbox off, which was good. Once I got it off, I realized even up into here, you know, another inch or so, it's just still pretty rough. So I went to town with a wire brush and then my drill. I had a couple attachments, and I sanded and I wire brushed and I sanded and I used some sandpaper, but I also used a like I said, a little wire brush on the end of my drill. And I worked and worked and worked. Okay, so I got it cleaned, all right, best as I could. So I have this cabinet, this old steel cabinet, and the doors got basically ripped off. I think the cabinet was in here, in this house when we got here. It's probably, you could tell that if you were to see the cabinet, you could tell it's probably from the 50s. So the old metal cabinet, I didn't really care about it. So I had taken the doors off, and I'm like, I'm going to keep these doors. I might need this metal. And what do you know? This metal door was it was a little bit bigger than the bottom of that. So, all right, so I'm going to cut out the inside. This was a 2-layer door. So I'm going to cut out the inside of this and try to use it. So I did. I angle grindered, cut the whole thing out. And this is what I was left with, was this angled piece of metal, right? So then I drew the piece, and then I started to bend it. And I bent the ends in first. I flattened the edges. Getting fancy. I'm trying. It didn't turn out perfect, but you'll see. So then I drew around it with the marker, and then I started to bend the edges and shape it. So I, of course, bent the edge in first and hammered it in so it wouldn't look too bad. And then I bent it on my, and kind of hammered it over on my vise. So then the only paint I had some primer for rust, but I didn't have great paint. All I had was this copper paint. I didn't have red paint. Yes, very ambitious. Yes, thank you. So I was like, all right, it's just gonna be copper then. So I wasn't super like careful, but I knew at the end of the day it didn't need to be perfect. It just needed to be done, because it's a toolbox. As long as it's secure, I could paint it some fancy red color later on if I needed to. So I at least used the copper paint and got it covered, Got a nice layer of, primer and a nice layer of copper. That's right, rust-proof finish. That's right. That's all it needed to be. Nobody's going to see it. Yeah, that's the other thing, too. That's right. So what I did was there wasn't a lot of support, and the original piece didn't have a lot of support either. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take these 2 pieces of wood, and I'm going to drill some holes, and I'm going to attach, and you can see, I attached these. I had some of these bits and some of the stuff that old guy had given me. I was like, I'm going to take these. They're made to hammer on the bottom of like wooden boxes and stuff to make them slide around easier. They're like a metal cap with like a plastic with like a nail in the middle. So I was like, I'm going to screw. So I did. I had some old screws. I screwed the wood on first, drilled some holes, and then I hammered these in. So that way the box had something to rest on, so it wouldn't have to rest directly on maybe moisture. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have to rest directly, on a table or anything that had moisture at all. I was like, at least gets it off, gets a little bit of air flow through there. if I have it sitting in a garage that has some moisture. So I did that, and then I believe I painted it. Yeah, I painted it, and then I attached it. Now I had to paint the sides because once again, it's the only paint I had. I had to paint the inside of the box. But what I did was I screwed it on with little metal screws. So it still looks pretty rough. It doesn't look great from, when you get close to it. But this is how it was looking when I got done to this point. I still had this weird gap here with the wood showing. So then I got that, but I did a bunch of those little metal screws. So it was very secure. Like, it felt pretty good. But that weird gap was bothering me. So I took a piece of plywood. I had these little strips. I had one strip that was like perfect. And so I slid it in there and then took some wood screws. And actually it ended up working out well because I took these wood screws and I screwed it into the other piece of wood. So now this cross piece, because this used to have a metal piece here and I had to cut it out. This cross piece now kind of acts as a bit of a support for the front end of this lip here. And these screws tie into the other bottom wood pieces. So it really does help to support the whole bottom a lot better, even though I am using wood as part of the support. And once again, it looks rough and it doesn't look perfect, but it is, there it is. It is what it is. Eventually, I might try to tape it off and paint the whole thing red to try to match this, but at any rate, I was like, for now, when you have it there on the desk with all the tools back in it, nice, not too bad. Yes, that's right, perfectly adequate. That's a great way to put it. Yep, there it is. Boom, all done. I was very happy with it. I felt like it turned out well, and for what I was doing, and it was doing okay. All right, so that's that project. Boom. That's right. So the other thing, I'm gonna have to show you from here. 1 second. Let me grab. Okay, here it is. You can kind of see it in this picture. Let's zoom in. Okay, do you see this? This is a potato bin, okay? And this is the other project I did. I had this little potato bin here, and my sister gave it to me. It might have had some critters in it at one point, and the one door fell off, as you can see here, and it was just it was a mess. It was a mess. It was kind of dirty. It wasn't the greatest of shape. Anyway. So I was like, all right. I need a potato bin really bad. Kind of like the two-tone difference. You like it? All right, good. I didn't think the copper looked too bad with the red anyways. So I was like, my sister gave it to me. She's like, see if you want this. You want to try to fix it up, whatever. She's like, I don't need it. So here. So I was like, all right, let's see what we can do. So I took it and I did some work on it. And this is how it turned out. And I was very, very pleased with how it turned out, because what I did, I had to do quite a bit. I first of all scrubbed it out, cleaned it, washed it, bleach water, soap water. I went to town, with a scrub brush, and I cleaned the daylights out of it. Left it out in the sun to dry. It dried up nice. Of course, it was pretty dry wood anyways. You know how older wood that's been, dried up, it dries up pretty quick anyways. Soaks that moisture up. Anyway, but I felt like I got it adequately clean. 2 or 3 of these wire cages on the inside had come off, so I had to restaple them. Oh, and I fixed my stapler in the process. I had a stapler from the one gentleman, that load of stuff, so I fixed the stapler too. I had to tear it all apart and re-oil it and do some stuff to it, but I got it fixed. So I restapled them. Then all of these, almost every single one of these hinges were broken. Every single one of them. So, and I found out that one piece was missing. So you're not going to be able to tell, because there's no way I'm going to be able to show you. I think it's this one right here. I literally made a brand new piece out of metal. Actually, out of the same steel door. I literally wrapped metal around and made a half of a hinge out of a piece of steel. I was actually very shocked at how well it came out. But it worked. It really did work. I couldn't believe it. Because I was missing only one piece. I didn't make the whole thing, but I did make one side of it. Yeah, it was really cool. And then I took a trick from, hey, Dedan, welcome in. How you doing? I learned a trick on one of the YouTube channels that does restorations, and I took these were like painted like a brass color, but they wouldn't have matched the one that I did. So I took the grinder. You know how they make things look bronze, or actually they're made to look like brass. They have like a brass like coating or whatever, or they're at least, I don't know, painted or something to look like brass. So I took my brush, my wire brush on the drill, and I cleaned them all off bare metal. Playing a lot, are you? Awesome, Dedan. Nice, nice. So I ground them all down to bare metal. I heated them on the stove because I still don't have a torch yet. I think my sister is actually going to give me a torch and some stuff. So I heated these on the stove, and then I doused them when they were about red hot. I doused them in well, I was using corn oil, but I think you're supposed to use vegetable oil. Anyway, I doused them in oil, and they come out this blackened type of thing. But I guess when you do that, which these don't really need to be, but it makes them more food safe. I guess what it does. It's like, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, they're on the outside, but it does help preserve. It gives them like a coating and a nice, like, I think it helps to cure the outside so they won't rust. But it also kind of blackens them up a little bit. I think it's kind of like a bluing almost is kind of what it does, even though it's not bluing, because bluing is from like a chemical. But it worked. It worked well. So I was able to screw them all back in, got them all back working, and then, like, it's hard to describe, and you can't really see it here. You can see how there's like a nice sheen. Well, if you would have seen the other picture, like if you would have seen it before, it's kind of hard to show it here because it doesn't really show up well. But this thing was really, really dry. It looked really, really bad. You can't even really tell there, but it was bad. Like, it was very dried out. And so get this, I looked up online. I was like, there's got to be some, I don't have any like good coating. I don't have any like wood stuff right now. It's like, I need something to kind of just replenish this oil. It's already stained. It looks nice. It just needs freshened up. So I came across this recipe for 2 parts olive oil, 1 part lemon juice. And believe it or not, now it's hard to get that stuff to mix together if you have like if you have something in it. If you have it in something with a cap, it helps to shake it up and mix it up. But I was able to recoat this whole thing with that mixture, and it really worked nicely. Which obviously it's food safe. It actually soaked in nice. It left a really nice sheen, and just turned out splendid. Of course, yeah, it definitely is food safe. I guess unless it like rots, which I don't think it would do that. So, yeah. So I did 2 projects in my new space. In spite of, working and getting the garage, it took way too long to do all of it, but it was very, very needed. And I feel like a freaking $1 billion.